Hello, welcome to another edition. I said another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get personal insights directly from a therapist doing this since 1995 in your car or in your home. We love doing the show, so join with us. And today we're going to be talking about vision and entrepreneurship. So I am Chris Gazdick. You are Matthew Hanks.
Still
Welcome
Matthew
back.
Hanks.
Yes, not Matthew.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm getting better at that, man. See the world through the lens of a therapist, but realize it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Apple, iTunes, Spotify, subscribe, give us those 5-star reviews. They help out a lot. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com. We get good interaction. Sometimes we bring it on the show with thoughts that you have. So contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is a great way to do that. And also the website, we got some cool new things out there. We're getting close to making an announcement about what I've been really excited about. I gave the hint last week. I think you weren't with us. It has to do with quotes and phrases. Quotes and phrases from the show. Pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a neat thing that we're going to...
Wheel of Fortune.
Not quite like Wheel of Fortune.
Okay.
But I guess, hey, Neil, put that in the thought bank. That right there could be a fun game show that we build up with thoughts and phrases for mental health. I think big, man.
Yeah, great game show.
It really would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be fun. How did they contact you, man? You came back to fill us in. I appreciate you rolling in. You're moved into Courtney's month. She had something going on, so we filled you in for another week. But how do they find you? How do they contact you? What do you do?
Well, professionally, I have a real estate firm here in the Gaston area, just outside Charlotte, and we have a team of agents that we serve homeowners in the Gaston area. Probably easiest way to find us is hanksrealtygroup.com. That's our website. Me personally, MatthewHanks.com. That's all my social media links there. And we can connect in that way.
I always really like to say he really cares about what he does with real estate. Like you really are a passionate real estate person, and it's a hot market right now. I'm sure a lot of people need you. And you really are a good one to turn to. That's a plug because I know the guy. Mm-hmm. You know, look at him. You see on Facebook Live and the YouTube, it's Sunday. I mean, look at how he's dressed. Look at how he's geared. He's always working. This guy's always working for you.
Yeah. Actually, Sundays I don't work.
So,
yeah. So don't lead them astray there, Chris.
All right. So let me get our brains geared here. Okay. The pandemic has created a lot of people reevaluating their life. And this was actually Courtney Donaldson's month, and this was her idea for the show. We just got screwed up Thursday, and she couldn't make it today. So this is the genesis of her thoughts. The pandemic has really made people reevaluate working from home, businesses that they might like to do, entrepreneurial mind, and I blended this together with people's vision about their life, which applies to all of us. So we're going to kind of combine both components, and I thought a good way to get us back into a mindset that Craig Graves talked about with us from his Unbeatable Mind coaching material, purpose, passion, and principles. And part of that, in developing a business or processing your life, making life process decisions, which I talk about in therapy all the time, he gave us questions to ponder and think about. So we're going to do a little segment here on developing your vision. These are the questions that he went on to get us thinking about it. And I'm just going to sort of redo that. Whatever episode that was on, he was on, it wasn't too long ago. Purpose, principles, and passion. So think about this as a targeted focus points to really get into what do you think about when you're trying to do your vision? I know you, Matt, you think of these things all the time, but what are you in a passionate way that defines who you are, right? What makes you feel as if your hair is on fire? Not like your comment not too long ago. You're like, I feel like I'm running around with my hair on fire. Remember you said that?
Yeah.
Because you're moving and you got all kind of stuff going on. This is more like what really drives you, what really has a burn on you that courses a direction for you. What unique skills or talents do you have that you love to use and make you feel different? And then my favorite, if you won the lottery today, what would you do differently? What would you really do if you won the lottery? These things, get you to think about vision, life. I like a 1, 5, 10-year plan. People like a 1, 3 and 5 year plan. I still go with 1, 5, and 10. But tell me what you see with these questions, what that brings up for you as it relates to people and their life vision.
Well, I think about that without a vision, the people perish, is what the word says. So if you don't have a vision of where you're going, you got a very small chance of getting there. You're going to wind up somewhere, and it's probably not what you would have hoped for with your vision. So the other question I think that's very thought-provoking is, what would you attempt if you could not fail? If you knew you could not fail?
That's a good one.
What would you attempt?
Yeah.
Now, that's the type of thing that's not your everyday thought process that's going to get you out of that day-to-day and think about big picture stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that really sets your soul on fire.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Instead of your hair on fire, set your soul on fire. Isn't that what you want?
Yeah, it is.
That's going to drive you in life.
And I think people feel that sometimes life pops us in a certain way.
Well, that's what COVID did.
It's what COVID did for a lot of people.
Yeah, and a lot of folks. That's what COVID did.
And honestly, Ukraine's doing that right now for a lot of people. Maybe in a smaller way in the States, but I would venture around the world. Life events that are really, really big and dramatic. Might be a divorce. It might be a death. These things really reframe and crystallize a picture that otherwise you've just been putting on the back burner, pondering a little bit here and there with a scotch or a bird watching event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this brings it into focus. Like, no, I must do this.
Yeah. And some of it may be preparing ourselves for the unexpected too, because COVID, no one saw that coming. You couldn't have been prepared for it. It wasn't something that you made a bad decision and so COVID happened to you. COVID just happened to all of us without any expectation or any notice. It just kind of happened to us, and Ukraine the same way. So probably what I've seen with COVID or during COVID, when it comes to entrepreneurship, is people want to control their own destiny and less of the things that happen to them, and they're the ones that are causing change in their lives instead of change that are affecting them.
We're a part of a mastermind group, and I really keyed into this activity. I don't know, because I think it was just a cool thing that they did, but these guys, Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller, they're really progressed people. They've launched into something very different between the two, but they were a part of the same mastermind group. Matt, you know what they did, dude? And we should do this maybe. It's something I've thought about in our group. They just had a gathering, a social get together, and they were getting the group together, their wives, and they just had a party. But they said, "Come not as you are, but come as you will be," right? And people really got into it. I mean, they rented cars, they dressed up, they had their, I don't know. I'm so not a creative person in that way. Like, I sucked at Halloween. It was terrible when I was a kid. I have no creativity, but they really got into it, and they showed up at this party as they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, in case of those two guys, I'll be curious about the other people. It's happened. Mm-hmm. You vision it, you envision, you look, and you see. And I just thought that was a really cool activity that made it sort of real, Like, I'd show up with 5 books in my arm and, whatever.
Something kind of cool that's somewhat related, I feel like, to that. One of the things we did was we were trying to write down our goals for the year.
Yep.
And, I'm in the middle of the move, like you had just mentioned, Chris, and I had my vision board, my piece of paper that had all these different categories.
I was impressed with you.
Okay, well, I had that actually in a moving box.
Okay.
And I just brought it in the new house. And it was just a nice thing to be able to put it right up on the bathroom mirror in the new house and say, because I've missed that. I didn't have it in the temporary housing.
Yeah.
But I just looked at it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to get back on track
reminder.
there. Oh, yeah, I got to get back on track there. And it was everything from nutrition to, daily things I was doing for my spiritual walk to fitness, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's amazing getting it visual and getting it back up in front of me. It's like, oh, yeah, gosh, I kind of fallen off on that.
So you noticed a difference.
Yes, just like that.
In just the, 2 months or so that you've been in transition.
Right.
And that just went back up.
just
And that-
because now it's back visual.
Yeah.
Because being part of the mastermind, going through that program, it was an exercise that we all did, but I got away from it because of the temporary housing. But think about the things we've, talking about business, talking about where the direction of the office and where we're going with overall with work, our professions. Public speaking was on there, Chris, and we've talked a lot about that.
Yep.
Aviation, we've talked a lot about that.
Yep.
So all these things, it's just small incremental movements towards those goals in each of those areas, and it's just keeping it visual. And I think making it, getting it in your mind, it's got to be in your mind first before you can outwardly manifest it. And I think that party that you're talking about, where you dress up as what you want to be or whoever, is probably part of that.
It is.
I don't even know what I would dress up as right now.
I know, right?
I'd have to think, well, I mean, I'm kind of like, you look at the progress we've made, and a lot of people in the group have in our mastermind over the past couple of years, and all the stuff that we're trying to do, Craig with his coaching and masterminds, all these different things, it's all coming about.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I thought that I would share today the vision that I have really about through a therapist's eyes. I see things, and I'm really excited about it. It's why we've shown up to do this show. And I implore you to stick with us, because, a lot of what I envision has a lot to do with what is happening, right? I'm starting to do a lot more public professional speaking. So if you have companies out there, contact us, because I literally have a talk called The Methodical Management of Mental Health. And I'm beginning to deliver that to different companies and organizations. It's going to be really an exciting year for me in that way. I see this podcast growing in a way where, Neil and I were just talking, why not go on tour? This could be something that we show up at your town. Now, this might even be years off, but when you look at entrepreneurial thinking, you can't be a flash in the pan. And we're going to talk about how to get your life vision together, solidified, and then consistently executed over a period of time. And I just think that people oftentimes struggle with their staying power. You run into roadblocks, you run into difficulties, We're trying to grow this show, we're trying to do some different things, but do you know how many podcasts there are out there? It's
10 billion.
I mean, it's
easy to get lost in the sea of content these days.
Yeah, I actually had a show that I started to like called How Things Are Made, or How Stuff Works. That's what it is. And they were talking about that one day on their podcast. They're talking on their show, man, we started this before podcasts were big. I don't know how they start out now. We wouldn't have been able to do that with it. And they're really well established. I mean, they are able to make good money with it and all that. And it's tough to start out now.
They'd start the exact same way. Just like what you mentioned.
Okay.
You got to have a vision.
Yeah.
So somebody's got a vision, a thought. This is something I think we can do. It's inside of them. It's a passion that they have. They have an interest in it, so they start talking about it. Other people might want to listen. They would start it the exact same way.
I think you're right.
That's what you've done. Now we're 175 episodes in.
Yeah. Neil told me 177 is what this was.
Is that? Oh, we've got
I mistitled.
Okay. So 177. I didn't mean to cut you short there.
Yeah, we got two additionals that we put out there.
That's a lesson though in business. Under promise, over deliver.
Yes. Yeah.
Two bonus episodes.
Right. They talk about your why, and we've talked about this in our group. And I think when you're talking about this little segment with vision, you've got to get clear about your why. He was on the show once, David talked about that. And I think he's really good about holding us accountable to well, wait a minute, why are you doing what you're doing? And I think that's interesting. Interestingly, it was you. I'm glad you're back for this comment. Remember how we talked about implicit bias?
Oh, yeah. We always show on it.
Right?
Did we a two-part show?
We had to do two because it wasn't enough.
Yeah. That was a tough one.
It's
not one I think about often.
And guys, that's episode 174 and 175. Well, I often pull things together in my mind as I'm learning and thinking and creating content. Look at the challenge, all that we talked about with implicitly biased beliefs about yourself and the world around you. And then you switch to an underpinning of what is your why for your vision, which creates your actions in your business or your marriage or your parenting, whatever vision you might be talking about. If you're not aware of what's implicitly going on with you, how do you even know your why? Can you see how that plays together?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be able to go into implicit bias, but I can use that in a lot of ways. But from your memory and what I'm saying right now, what does that mean to you?
Well, we talked about implicit bias being things that are maybe under the surface that you don't think about consciously, but that they fuel every decision you make, every action you make, the direction of your life, the things you want to work on. And if you talk about somebody's why when it comes to their vision for their life or why they're doing their business, it kind of gets to that. It's peeling back the layers. Stuff you may not think about and talk about every day, but it's fueling you and it's driving you. So yeah. I think the two are related.
They're highly related, and in a way that I'm concerned about for people. Let's go to the next point on developing your vision. You mentioned failure. What would you do if you were guaranteed to not fail? Well, your implicit biasness, we tried to turn that into a positive, if you remember. That was a little bit of the genesis of the part one. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the things that we focus on in thinking about implicit bias, like you were just explaining and talking about, is negative, are the ones that really get us. And so when you have inherently negative, unknown base points that you're focused on in your subconscious, and then you look at, well, why am I doing what I do? That's a question, if you really go deep on, that'll help you to access what's really driving me, what my fear of failure is, and all of that kind of thing. Look, that is a powerful blocking force that is in the mental health realm that stops people before they even start. If you're looking at your marriage and you feel like this marriage could just never get better, that's going to block you from healing and regrowing and reconstituting together, right? If you feel like my kids and the vision I have with my kids, they're just not measuring up to what I thought this was going to be like, well, there's implicit bias there. What's your why as a parent? Well, that's going to block you from being able to teach the real life lessons that you really want to install. I just really wanted to pause there because I think that there's a lot in that episode 174 and 5 that plays into all sorts of things, like this component of being an entrepreneurial mind and getting things together and feeling so lonely and helpless with it. So check those out. We'll pull those into this. Well, I just did. All right, let's move on, though, to that focusing. What did you say? How did you put it? What would you do if you never fail? Say that again.
Just the question to ask yourself, what is it that you would attempt if you knew you could not fail?
Because I think I didn't realize that you were going to bring that, but that brings this little segment to a close beautifully, because people envision loudly what they fear. How about that for a quote? That's a good one, Neil. People envision loudly what they fear. And when you're looking at your vision and you're looking at what you'd like to have in your life, if failure or the potential of is loudest in your thinking, man, that sucks. You can't really get out of the gate. When you're trying to start a business, if you're starting it off with that kind of mindset, how screwed are you? You're really going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
So in the book that I wrote, I'm going to give a self-plug.
Okay. It's your show. You're allowed to do that.
I know, right? I am getting a class together for the book. I'm not ready to make that announcement, but I guess I just did around the world. And what I did is I thought through and really examined what I literally wrote, and I put it onto 4 different sections, and one of them is focus points. That was one of the things that kind of, in re-understanding your emotions and becoming your best self, focus points was a big component. So look at these chapter titles. I just want to run through them real quick. Get your mind to be thinking about this, and then we'll go on to the next section of what is really an entrepreneurial, okay? So focus points is a huge part of re-understanding your emotions and becoming your best self. 1 of 4. So chapter 1.6, focus on encouragement from others or learn to encourage ourselves with positive thinking. Chapter 12, Some people falsely believe they don't have feelings or emotional experiences. Okay. Chapter 20, humble people are happy people. That's a focus. How humble are you? Chapter 23, the body goes as the brain thinks. Okay. Chapter 27, we experience most what we focus on the most. Chapter 31, focus on time. Flexible thought in the present is required to let go of regret from the past or worry about doom in the future. I love chapter 31. There's a lot there. Chapter 32, we choose what we focus on. You know the phrase that I hate? I hate it when people are like, how do they put it? People are choosing to be, unwell. Or people just choose not to get better. And I know that sounds like I agree. I do totally agree. The thing that bothers me is that there are things like anxiety. You don't even know you have it, but it's wrecking you. Depression. Wow, that's why I feel so unmotivated. There's things that people aren't choosing there. But the flip side and the real gem there is that you can choose what you focus on. And I hit that pretty hard in chapter 32 because you got to learn how to do that. But again, chapter 32, we choose what to focus on. What we focus on in part determines how we feel. Okay? So that just gets your brain working a little bit on, what are some of those questions? What are some of those quotes? How can these things really live out in your life? We're here to make this mystery today come alive. Okay? So let's back up. What's an entrepreneur? So you were talking about a little bit more of business. And I agree with you in a large part. But I don't know. I want to expand that a little bit. So definition, a person who engages or organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. And I think that matches kind of what you're saying, right?
I think so. I didn't write it, but
yeah,
I can go along with that.
Yeah. So I in the Facebook before the mics came on, I said it, and I'm going to say it again. I think it's a cool thought. When I'm really looking to hire people, and I'm really looking for somebody to join Metrolina Psychotherapy Associates, I want employees that think like the owner, because it gives you a different mindset. I think that you can be an entrepreneurial mind even when you're, quote unquote, working for the man, right? I mean, if you're driving a truck, how can I do that in the most earnest way that benefits me and the company? Because when it benefits the company, I'm more valuable to the company and it benefits me. That's entrepreneurial mind, right? So I think that we can extend this out to, like, when you have a strong vision in your life, like we just talked about in the first segment, and then you're engaged in something that the company's doing, don't you think your boss is going to pay close attention and at some point really recognize, like, wow, that guy is doing what I need them. I need that guy or that gal. My 20-year-old is really engaged in a lot of this right now. It's awesome to watch him work through what he really wants. And it's like, we just had a deep conversation this afternoon because he got another opportunity. And he's a young mind.
Good for him.
Yeah. He's energized. He's hungry.
That's great.
He's wanting what's the best opportunity for me? He just got another opportunity, but he's also got to frame it in that vision. His detailing company that he wants to really own and run. Is that the priority now or not? And those are questions that he's really working through. It's really cool to watch him do that. And I think everyone listening to the show can do that in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Does that sound too idealistic?
Sure. No, I don't think so. It's great to hear your son's having that kind of success too. That his hard work's paid off and he's got options ahead of him and he's thinking in terms of what's going to be the best avenue for him going forward. Mm-hmm. That's great.
It's really cool to watch his brain work on it.
Mm-hmm. Good for him.
He just left the car lot that he was selling for, and it was emotional for him. Mm-hmm. But, which is another point. How do those emotions that you have play into that? Mm-hmm. And you got to be on top of that and managing that. Now, I want to draw a distinction here when we get in here talking about why entrepreneurship can be lonely. We're not really talking about just side gigs. We're not really talking about. I don't know how to say it, but you know how people sell dishes and Tupperware and I'm not downing those. Please, anybody that's doing them, that's great, but that's not your life drive. That doesn't put your hair on fire. This is something that you enjoy, and you can make some money at. And that's awesome. But what we're really talking about here is when you're taking a life course change. You're considering the pandemic has come. I've always wanted to open up a restaurant. Now's the time because a lot just closed. I can jump into this. I can do this. Mm-hmm. That's a life course change. So I'm thinking about it on kind of that level from this point out in our conversation.
Okay.
Is an entrepreneur mind person a networker? It's a big plus, right?
Sure helps. I think in most any business.
If you're not, it denotes relationships and building them and going with that. This is a little bit of a foreshadowing when we get to the section on how do you manage, the loneliness and the emotional challenges. Boy, it is really tough to do when you're in your own head, when you're in your own feels, as they say, when you're isolating and you don't really want to ask questions or talk with people. Dude, when you opened up hanksrealty.com, how many people did you talk about the things that you needed to consider setting up? You remember those days?
Yeah, talked to a number of people. I had plenty of people try to talk me out of it.
Did you really?
Yeah. Matthew, you don't know what you're getting into. It's far better just to be
stable.
And then let somebody else take the risk and let somebody else, in a lot of ways, pay the bills. I think sales is kind of where I gravitate towards in any operation, organization. And the highest paid people in a lot of organizations is the salespeople. Like Matthew, you're actually going to make more money if you let somebody else own the company, let somebody else run the company, and you just sell. It's so easy.
That's what they say.
Yeah. And I don't know that I disagree with it.
Really?
I don't know that I necessarily disagree with it because everybody's not cut out to run a business or own a business. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart.
That's true. I think people really can unleash. I would disagree with you a little bit there. Let's park out here for just a second because the fears that people have, the doubts that people have, the naysayers that they have in their life. I mean, there is something that sets Michael Jordan off in his mentality than other basketball players. Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that, and I don't think everybody needs to do this for sure. Mm-hmm. But in the way of, the things that you prioritize, whether it be your finances or your business or your marriage, the things that really get you geared into life. There's a lot of people that have become a pastor, because of this. And they're not really geared with all of the business knowledge up front. Mm-hmm. Therapists are known for opening up their practice and not knowing anything about business. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
The idea that the knowledge and the skill set and the day-to-day and the challenges that you face owning the business is very different than what it is actually doing the work of the business in a lot of cases. Think about Jordan. You brought up Jordan. Okay, he owns the Hornets. Okay, he was world-class as a player. The greatest ever.
Yeah.
Basketball player ever.
They're pretty good right now, though. I know where you're going. They're playing real well right now.
Okay, but would you say that Jordan is world-class as the owner of...
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, so he might be good.
Yeah.
He might be a B-. Yeah. But he was an A+ player. It's just two different things. Just because he knew the world of basketball on the court doesn't mean you step into a operations role or a management role or ownership role and you're necessarily going to be good at it. That's kind of my point. Not everybody should jump out and become an entrepreneur.
I think so. And I don't know how I feel about this, but let me throw this in there because I did come across an article I thought was kind of cool. They layered out different types of entrepreneurship. And that goes with this. They said there's builders, there's the opportunist, there's an innovator, and then specialist. I guess I fall in the line of a specialist with mental health, but I really like to create. That's part of what I really enjoy is a creation. Mm-hmm. So that would denote builder as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's. I think there's. You can't be what you're not. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I hear you saying. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you're in a role that isn't really suiting you, you'll feel the discomfort of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll know when you're engaged in something that energizes you. I mean, I do this show. I can be doing therapy all day long, and I'm just wore out by the time the end of the show is. done. I'm energized. It's like, okay, well, that tells me something. So maybe that's something to pay attention to, not the loneliness and the
Where
fear.
the energy comes from?
Yeah.
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 Because back to my example, I was talking about sales, more money, less hours, less stress, less risk,
Sounds good.
all those things are positives, but it was just inside of me that there may be positives, but it's just inside of me. I just have to do it. There's more risk. It might cost me, all these different things. I'll put in more hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it was just, part of my overall career path and who I wanted to be as a person and, who I felt, opportunities for myself of who I wanted to be. I wanted to try it. And I just couldn't be talked out of it.
And it was worth it?
I think long run, yes.
Yeah.
But I took a step back in some ways with the business. I mean, it's not necessarily a step forward when you go out and open your own thing or hang
a lot
your own
of myths
shingle.
out there, which we'll get to shortly.
A lot of what? What was that?
There's a lot of myths out there.
Oh, myths.
About, uninformed optimism is the transition piece there. Okay, so let's get to the depths here on the title, right? Entrepreneurial, The Lonely Road. This is tough stuff. When you're doing a major life change in direction in your life, whether it's forced by divorce or death or something like that, there's a lot of hopelessness that settles in. And this becomes really, really different to live through. It isn't all that it's cracked out to be. And unfortunately, when it starts from, so this comes from, Neil, I need to get you the book so that you can have it on the show notes, The 12-Week Year. We were forced to read this in our mastermind group. Craig, I'm just joking, man. We love it. It's not forced. I just had to pop them.
Add it to the list of homework.
Yes. So, which, by the way, we need to probably dig in this afternoon, you and I, when we're done, at least to be able to have a conversation Tuesday. So they had a really, really cool thing that was in there that I'm using to demonstrate the process that you go through with, what they talked about in a 12-week year that entrepreneurial people go through. Check this out. There's phases. There's stages, right? The phases of an entrepreneurship: uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, the valley of despair, informed optimism leading to success and fulfillment. That's the quick and dirty of it. But what you're talking about is uninformed optimism. People say, oh, I'm going to own my own company. I'm going to do my own thing. This is going to be great. No one's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to make a lot of money. God, why wouldn't I want to do that? Well, there's a lot to it that it ain't just that. I mean, I'm here doing budgeting stuff and detailed analytics for payroll and crap. That's like, that doesn't have anything to do with therapy, does it?
Well, that's where the why has to kick in. You got to have a big why.
Yes.
I mean, to run the company. Because
Yes.
like you as a therapist, I mean, you may be able to serve more clients, make more money, have less stress, have less risk, all these things.
I could.
To be a therapist inside of a larger organization where somebody else is handling all that nonsense.
Yep.
And if they treated you well and they respected you and you were compensated well and you were able to, the things that are important to you, you're able to, what's the word? You're able to exercise those things that are important to you, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Your spin on things. If you've got a certain methodology as to how you practice those type of, they're not taking away your creativity and
clinical
and who
freedom.
you are. Yeah, clinical freedom. Let's say you're offered clinical freedom, a beautiful office, you're respected, you're well compensated. Could be better for you to be a part of a much larger organization, or maybe
and part of my why is I like to build up young therapists. I like to help out.
So there's the why.
Culture, exactly.
So as you hit the junk.
Yeah.
The crap, like payroll, like insurance, like leasing a building, like all that nonsense. Okay, and that's what it feels like. You're like, why am I having to hand on payroll? I want to help clients, but that's what comes along with it.
It is.
But if your why inside is so powerful and just burns inside of you that you're willing to plow through that stuff.
But what you got to be careful about is the first stage that they talk about, uninformed optimism. When you don't know all of that and you run into that, that will hit you upside the head.
You just about can't skip that step, though. I mean, you talking about avoid it, you can't avoid it. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. If you're going into any business,
Well,
whatever it
that's
is,
true.
you can't possibly know. You could sit down and interview, 10 different folks that ran therapist office. Hey, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly about. Well, guess what? You could spend hours with each one of them. There's still stuff that you're just not going to know.
You have to tactfully understand it by doing it.
And you're not going to do it. You're not going to move into it probably unless there's a certain amount of optimism. So I think that's where things are birthed.
Yeah, but they're talking about uninformed, the naivete that kind of comes in. And then when you deal with that, then you have what you're talking about is informed pessimism. And that's where you're really kind of understanding the challenges that are there. And the informed nature of the pessimism means that you're forming your company. You've come through a life change. You've made a decision, and now you know kind of what you're up against and the challenges. But then really, and this I think gets at what Courtney wanted to talk about with the idea of mental health and business, the lonely road. You get into a place of despair. Let's really call that what it is. Company owners, business owners, entrepreneurially minded folks get into, what did I just do in my life?
I've experienced it.
And I have too.
I've been through it. I mean, I think these phases are very well informed.
Right.
By the writer or who developed these, if they were borrowing from somebody else's teachings or whatever. But I think these apply
to a T, don't they?
Right across the board, I bet, with just about any entrepreneur that sets out to do their own thing.
And we're going to talk about your marriage, what you choose to do with your kids. This does apply. Keep on pulling that together in your life that you set as a major goal for yourself. You will come across the valley of despair. All you newlyweds out there that might be listening to it and you're a year in, what happened the day after we got married? I didn't see that coming. This stuff happens in life a lot, and we're going to talk about how to manage it and how to get out of that. But the last segment that we go in goes right at this valley of despair, because you've got to get through that. And the big question then is, well, how do you get through that, Chris? Okay, well, we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. But this valley of despair, I don't want people to be shocked, because you're going to hit it. More than likely, 100% of the time when you go through a major life change. Talk about divorce. When you get divorced, we did a show, Casey and I, the valley of despair when you're single. I'm not lovable. I'll never date again. This is terrible. Oh my gosh, I should have stayed married. What am I going to do? That's really, really a normal phase that you go through, but it's a phase, right? You're missing the tree for the forest, or is that how they say it? Because look at what comes next, like an informed optimism. Wait a minute, I got through some things. I had some wins. Whew, last month was tough, but this month the budget's coming together. Wow. I wonder how I can build this further, and you begin to develop an informed optimism, and then you really get to the success and fulfillment of the why that you even started this in the first place. It's a hell of a ride.
The quote that comes to mind, I think it was General Patton. If you're going through hell, keep going.
All right. It wasn't Patton.
Was it not?
And you heard that from me.
That was your quote?
That wasn't my quote. It's my favorite life quote.
Okay.
Because I hit upon some tough times. And I watched Dunkirk.
Okay.
And I talked about it in groups. Well, I think you got it from me. And then I watched The Darkest Hour, and it was Winston Churchill.
Churchill, okay.
Yeah.
Great quote, though.
Oh, amazing quote.
If
you're going through hell, keep going.
Keep going.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, because there's more phases.
There are more phases.
Yeah.
You're not stuck.
Oh,
there.
You're in despair.
You're
great.
Continuing to go through.
Yeah. Guess what? You're in phase 3. Good job. You've made it to level 3. Yeah.
And man, but when you're in it, it doesn't feel that way.
No.
And that guy was in the middle of it, having Hitler breathe down the country's back like they were going to die, all of them. It was a powerful, powerful movie, The Darkest Hour.
Well, what you have to understand, though, is that there's a phase 4. If you're going through phase 3, just keep in mind there's a phase 4.
Informed optimism.
And then there's a phase 5.
You know what it's about. You know what to look for. You know what to look, excited about. It's informed optimism. I know I love this, right? Uninformed optimism. It's kind of bad. Informed pessimism. You're getting it. Valley of despair. Holy cow, you're in it. It's tough, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Informed optimism. And the last phase is really the success and fulfillment that you do feel from such an awesome venture. You ever talk to those hungry people in AA? That's another one. Again, like recovery. You want to get your life's relationship with alcohol that's destroying your life. And you literally, people will get sober and they're like, my life sucks. This is horrible. Never mind that you've gone through 3 divorces, 4 DUIs, your liver's shot, and alcohol's been destroying you. You finally got that out of your life. You're sober. And you hit into a valley of despair. But then you do 12 steps in the AA program or religion or whatever you do.
There's your phase 4.
There's your phase 4.
Informed optimism starts creeping in.
Yes.
You've reached phase 4. And
the success and the fulfillment.
keep going. Phase 5's on the way.
Recovering people are some of the most. What was one of my chapter quotes? Humble people are happy people. Mm-hmm. I've never met more humble people than you'll find in the recovering community. Absolutely. I'll stand by that until I die. Because they've been through hell and back, and they're standing back up.
I sat down with a new client last week, Chris, and the guy said, he's talking about some of his life journey, things they'd gone through. He said he was homeless for a period of about 1.5 years. Yep. Business failed. Not. He said it was one of the best times of his whole life. Looking back.
Yeah.
He said, looking back. Yep.
Not in
now,
it.
I'm certain why he was going through that. He wouldn't have not said that. But he said, looking back, it was one of the best things in my life. It just gave him a new appreciation, gave him a new outlook. I'm sure made him humble. He had a business and had it going big at one time and then found himself homeless for a period of time. But he said, looking back, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Wow. Homelessness.
Yeah. I literally have talked to people in my therapy rooms that have had life events like that. And you do get out of those spaces. We did an impassionate plea for people that are, after the breakup, when Casey and I were talking about, I happen to feel that's one of the most decompensated emotional states that people get into. But you recover, you heal. Life doesn't end with a divorce. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't. Mm-hmm. And you find yourself in that because you're forced to. Mm-hmm. Life doesn't end. This is a weird statement, but I'm going to follow it through. Life doesn't end when your loved one dies. Think about that. Your life, their life has ended, and that's super hard, the grief process and all of that. But your life continues to go on when you're widowed or when you're a widower, we've seen some things with that recently. And we're going to watch the process of those that we care about that have great losses like that kind of come back up. Mm-hmm. Because you have now an informed optimism. I love that phrase, isn't it? You have an informed optimism about what life can be for you now. Mm-hmm. Now, people do get stuck. I will highlight that. People do get stuck in that. And again, this is where a lot of businesses fall, is in the valley of despair. They never get out of it. That is where companies die a lot of the times because they won't go further. And they'll just close up shop and give up, or their fear gets the better of them. That side of it happens a lot of times. Partnerships. Oh, my gosh. You develop a partnership. That is probably why partnerships, what do they die like 80% of the time?
I don't know that stat. It'd be interesting to know.
I made up that number, so don't hold me to it. But they struggle a lot because that's an involved relationship with your business partner.
Yeah.
Super hard.
Yeah, so hard. I mean, I've rarely will you find someone that says, go ahead and do a partnership. Most people, if they've been down that road, will advise you, don't even consider it.
Yep.
No, avoid it. If you can avoid it, avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple other things to think about with this. Why does this really get so lonely? Your risk tolerance issues is a big thing to factor. Those risk takers out there are built and bred, kind of like you said. That all rhymes, right? They are built and bred, just like you said a little bit ago. If you don't have a high risk tolerance, that's okay. A major life change where you're taking more risks is not a great thing for you.
It seemed like you disagreed with that when I said that not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur.
Glad you called me back on that. I disagree with the potential that people can be that way. Okay, so here's an interesting question. If your risk tolerance is currently low, can you increase your risk tolerance? I would say yes. But you have to do that. You can't go further until you address that. Focus points. Develop more knowledge. Get some more training. Get, some other kinds of support. Get a new office manager. You can do things, but you have to back up and look at your risk tolerance, increase that purposefully. And so, I think that we can unleash those types of things.
I find the risk tolerance, as my thought towards this, the risk tolerance, like you say, let's say it's a category. Let's say you got a report card, and risk tolerance, where do you rate? What grade do you get on risk tolerance? Okay,
following.
That's one of about 100 different categories of things that you need to be proficient at in order to be an entrepreneur.
Fair.
That's what I would submit to you. Okay. So here's the thing. Somebody that's let's say a great entrepreneur. Let's say they rank high in all the main categories that you need. The risk tolerance, the work ethic, the drive, the why, the people skills, everything it takes, right? Okay. Networking. Okay. One person is great at that. They set to open a business and the business goes great. Let's say it employs 50 people, 100 people. Okay. You got one entrepreneur. The rest of them get on the bus. It's the entrepreneur's bus, their dream, their vision, their company. Everybody else can jump on the bus. They got a seat on the bus, and they may be happy there. That may be their calling. And they're able to thrive and prosper and provide for their families and all, but they're not the entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
I mean, I'm saying the entrepreneur, because I think there may be people out there may be listening that say, maybe beating themselves up, or they feel like they've reached a certain place, and let's say they're cutting hair. Like, you know what? They're a great stylist, but there's just something inside them. They're not happy unless they own the salon.
Right.
An entrepreneur. I'm like, don't beat yourself up about that. If you're a great stylist and you enjoy what you do, you make good money, you got time for your family, all these different things that are important to you in your life, don't go to bed every night beating yourself up because you don't own the salon.
Yeah,
it might not be for you to own the salon.
I think my pushback a little bit is just that doesn't have to be a select few in taking the mindset, like thinking like the owner, and that then would be an entrepreneurial mind in business, but you're not doing a company. Mm-hmm. And so, when we're looking at entrepreneurial minded stuff and why it's lonely, when you're trying to apply that to an area of your life like parenting, or maybe you don't want to have kids. I know people. I was just talking to somebody last week that was struggling with, like, I don't really want to have kids. Is that okay? I'm like, well, of course it's okay. So what entrepreneurial mind, what vision are you creating for your life? Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of combining those two. If we're having a strictly business show, I think I'm totally on board with the way you're looking at that.
Well, in an overall organization, there's 100. Let's say there's 100 people. There's one owner.
Yeah.
Or two owners.
There can only be
99, 98 of the other people are doing something else besides owning the company, but they can be very fulfilled. They can be successful. They can provide a living for their family, all those things, and never be the owner.
And I'll bring it back to the segment that we're on. Why does this get so lonely? Because there's only one of you in 100 people.
That's part of
what makes this so lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the reality and the thing I found is, you say you like people to have that ownership mentality if they're a part of the organization, but just the reality of it is that's just not the case. Most people in the organization, there's one person that owns it, and it's difficult to find other people that are going to match your work ethic, your determination, your willingness to do whatever it takes to succeed. That's what an owner does. No.
Yeah, I said there's a little bit of a little bit, if not a lot, of natural anxiety in the entrepreneurial person. They're driven. They have a drive. They have an anxiousness that comes out in, I'm going to work hard and create something. And that anxiety can serve to trump into loneliness as well. And then there's the phrase, you ever heard of don't ever let them see you sweat. You ever hear that phrase? That creates the loneliness. That these things that you're the one in the 100 group for that company that is alone in that, it creates this loneliness. I mean, it really is. It's one of the opportunities. I mean, honestly, I think I'll make this statement. If you're a business owner or want to be, I mean, it would be awesome and amazing to find an entrepreneurial-minded group like the Mastermind.
Mm-hmm. Well, they exist.
They exist.
There's multiple groups.
And our
it's
good friend Craig Graves wants to run them. Is running.
Well, he will be excellent at that.
Right.
As he goes down that road. But, in an organization, gripes should go up, praises should go down. And if you're at the top, who do you gripe to?
That's item number D. When you're at the top, so to speak, even of a small company or a single operation, there seems to be no one to talk to that can understand the pressures. That the quote, "the buck stops here." I mean, he created that that quote that president did because it's really true. Mm-hmm. I mean, people come to me all the time, wanting me to solve these little problems, these little things come on. I'm just like, I don't know. Figure that one out. Let me know if there's a major problem. But the reality of it is, it does come to me ultimately. It at least in our little realm here of Metroline and Psychotherapy Associates. And so,
well, and out of a 100-person organization, you got a problem. You should always be able to go to your superior and discuss it with them.
That's right.
Right. Well, guess what? If you're at the top, who do you go to?
The Lord. Oh, you just did the prayer. Right.
God help me.
And you do have boards and you have, consulting groups and things like that you could do. But it's tough. It's not, you can get stuck in the moment real quick, real easily. And so thus that begs the question, how do we deal with this, man? How do we get through the valley of despair? How do we get to the other side of that
keep going
and manage this?
I think you've got to, realize, number one, if you can realize that's where you are and realize that there's multiple phases, and then you realize you're in the third phase, like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, I was once in the third grade. Well, guess what? I didn't stay in the third grade, Right. I mean, we all went through the third grade. Now we're in the fourth grade, fifth grade, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If we understand that there's 5 phases.
Yep.
And you can understand that this is just a phase.
Gives you staying power, presence of mind.
Don't panic. Don't stop. Don't get discouraged. I mean, you're in despair, so of course there's going to be some discouragement. But if
you're going through hell, then keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
The brightest hour is after the darkest dawn. Is that the?
Oh, that's a good one.
Hey, it's about to get a whole lot better. If you've gotten to the bottom, then guess what? It's trending upwards from there.
Alcoholics Anonymous talks about the bottom all the time. You reached your bottom and you could not live that life with addiction anymore.
No matter how far you've fallen, how low you are, if you're trending up, your trajectory is up, then there's brighter days ahead.
Absolutely.
So you've got to find something to hang on to be encouraged about, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and take a deep breath.
It's a hope generator.
Yeah, and we can, we can be there for each other at times like that too. If you can find somebody that'll just take you to lunch, take a phone call that you can text back and forth with, just something that'll help you day to day.
So we go back to my planting a seed when we started out the show. If you're an entrepreneurially minded person, if you're doing a business venture, or you're making a major life change, so let's have this conversation about making a major life change and the emotions that come in that process. Networking is good. Being alone is bad. You cannot generate that hope in your own mind, particularly when you're mired in the depression, the disgust, just the horrible vision that you get with the valley of despair, walking through the valley of the dead bones. I mean, it's hard to really stay and speak truth or in life and, hope into those tough times. And when you reach out to others, just for a lunch, as you say, or whatever it might be, do that. Don't. I say it all the time on this show, whether we're talking about different topics. Don't be alone. That's a huge part of managing, these problems. Episode 49, we did a whole show on loneliness. So when you talk about making a major life change and feeling lonely in that change as you're trying to make it work, check out episode 49. We looked at, because loneliness is increasing in the world today. We're ever so connected. We're ever so joined, so to speak. But yet we feel much more alone than we ever did. It's such a conundrum, and it's increasing in the world right now, right? So check out episode 49, and then we also go back. You've said it a few times. Know your why. You've got to know why you're doing what you do, and when you do, that directly pushes you through the valley of despair that we've talked about so much in that section.
There's a 7 levels exercise that helps identify the why, the deeper part. So if you say, well, why are you doing it? And you have an answer, and then you ask, well, why is that?
Oh, yeah.
And you go and you do that 7 times.
7 times.
And it'll just keep drilling down, and you'll get to the deeper places.
Go a little more about that. Start that over and tell people how what that is, because that's a good activity. So here's an activity that you can do when you're making a major life change.
Yeah, well, you're just talking about how important the why is. And so most people say, well, Chris, why do you run a therapy office?
Oh, you ask me? Yeah, because I really enjoy developing a culture and having other therapists that can kind of engage in that culture and really do good with mental health in our little area of the world.
Well, that's cool. That's great. Well, why is that?
Yeah, because people really need help. They need a lot of mental health despair is out there.
I can't say I disagree with you. But why is that? Why do you think that they...
See, I might only need 3 or 4 because the power that has in individual's life and being able... Yeah, here's what comes out of it. So being able to make an impact in one person's life is an incredible gift to give.
So it's important to you that you make an impact on other people.
Yeah.
Why would you say that is?
Only one more.
I think we're only 4.
Yeah, we're only at 4. I don't know what comes
You start
down.
pausing after about 3 or 4.
You do.
Because it starts peeling the layers back, and now we're getting deeper.
You're right.
Because the first answer you gave is just a surface. It's just you're not even thinking yet.
Yep.
It's just well now okay, let's peel back. Let's get deeper. Let's go. And now, because it could be that running a therapy office, when you get to your core why, there may be some other avenue out there, some other venture that helps you accomplish your why even better. Mm-hmm. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. That was fun in real time.
Yeah, I know. Put you on the spot with it, but you can, if you're wondering what your why is, get with somebody, get with a friend or an acquaintance, and go through the exercise.
Do that seven layers deep, and
you
will begin to struggle. Like I started to struggle at 4, right?
Yeah.
And you will arrive at some interesting things. Thank you for that. Excellent teaching moment. I also say have a good plan. As a part of dealing with major life changes. What pops into my mind in the mental health world, domestic violence. There's a lot. There might be some people that are managing and surviving domestic violence, and are like, "What the heck is my life going to be like if I'm doing this?" Well, because of safety reasons, especially so. Mm-hmm. One of the first things we do in domestic violence is just make a plan. What is your basic and fundamental safety plan for any given engagement where you feel your life or limb is at risk? Mm-hmm. Have a plan and be prudent about developing that plan. Mm-hmm. That leads you out of the valley of despair because you've got your plan. Let me just do it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to analyze it anymore. I've already got it in place. Let me just keep on, like you said, keep going through it. Let me just do the next part of my plan. I don't even think it's going to work. I'm so frustrated. I'm hopeless right now. I'm scared. This might even mean my life, but you know what? Let me just do the next thing was on my plan. What was it anyway? Pull it out of the drawer and just and do that. So it is wise to have a good plan in place and being prudent about it. You will need that plan. And don't they want to make a business plan in a business?
Well, you need one.
Yeah.
I mean, your chances of success are going to go up drastically if you have a game plan, at least a place to start.
There was a cool article that I came across, Investopedia.com, actually. And they identified these things, and I just stole it and went with them. I didn't steal it. I'm crediting them. But it kind of gets back to what you were kind of saying when you're looking at making a major life change, and particularly in business. These traits help. And again, I don't think they always have to be completely baked in there. You're going to need to round some rough edges. Maybe 3 or 4 of these you're good at. A couple others you really suck at. Other ones are mediocre. Let's really look at the ones you suck at, build those up a little bit, But being versatile, being flexible, having some money savvy, being resilient. That's a highlight in my mind. Resiliency and emotional resiliency. You better say yes to this question. Can you build internal emotional resiliency?
Yes.
Like, yeah, of course you can. My gosh, my entire industry is built on that, right? Being focused, being business smart, and communicators. Those are things that they identified. Speaking strictly, I think, in the entrepreneur world, that help you to be successful. But I submit in major life changes, those characteristics are important as well. Like I said earlier, this isn't exactly a business show, right? But if you get interested, you really need to do research into the business aspects. Mm-hmm. That will help your confidence grow. Mm-hmm. A simple thing in business: know your competitors. Mm-hmm. Look around at what other people are doing. Now, I throw that in, and as I'm talking about it, I'm kind of like, I'm not talking about looking at social media to see what everybody else is doing to gain confidence and comfort in yourself and get out of the valley of despair. That's not what I'm talking about. Mm. You're right. I'm talking about what do other people do that budget well? How do we get, let's take the Dave Ramsey class. What do other people do with parenting? Maybe I can learn some ideas. Research love and logic, right? What do other people do to improve their marriage? And we're having a hard time. Look into emotion-focused therapy. Those are the three things that I call part of the trifecta. You want a major area of life change, look at some of the research. Get to know what's going on with that. And I think people do that naturally, so it's a little bit of a, like, duh, yeah, that's, why wouldn't you? But I don't know that people really take the time to do that. So I'm just kind of commenting, take the time to do that. Ask a lot of questions. If you don't have questions about this life change that you're wanting to engage in, then ask yourself why you don't have questions. And questions come to mind, and then you ask those questions. Please be curious. Be quizzical. Be thus informed. Be prudent. You might get bad information, but if you ask 10 people a question and you get 9 different responses that are really good, that's easy to find the one that doesn't, right? So ask multiple sources, multiple questions, become an expert, learn, and then you can execute a major life change. Make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Right?
Yeah, get curious.
Get curious.
Just a different way of saying it.
Yeah, get
Ask
curious.
A lot of questions. Get curious.
Celebrate successes is a must as well. We've talked about the jar of success.
Always something to be thankful for.
Yes. Humble people are happy people. Book quote, chapter 15 or whatever it was, right? Get friends. I'm sure people are like, well, I don't have anybody to talk to. I'm looking around. I don't really have anybody to hang out with. Episode 21, we talked about friends are essential. I blew Craig's brain apart when we talked about that. He was like, I never really thought about it that way. He was fascinated at the way that I look at friendship and being purposeful about developing friendships. Don't go in it alone. I just can't say that enough. Develop and have a good team around you. I mentioned the mastermind has helped us out tremendously. Guys, this thing that you're going through, this major life change, can be really hard and scary and daunting and create loneliness and hopelessness and fear and anxiety and depression. But hopefully we've talked a little bit about some things that will guide you to get out of the space that is driven by those things, choosing your focus point and getting geared in to make happen in your life what it is that you feel you're needing to change. How's that sound?
Yeah, it's life-changing stuff to consider it. And I love those 5 phases.
Yeah, I
think
too.
they apply not just for entrepreneurship, but relationships, business, a lot of different, probably college journeys.
A little bit tagged onto this. I think next week we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with a difficult boss. I popped that here for your awareness to keep you curious, and it'll combine well with that.
You need to bring some of the people on my team on for that show.
I know, right?
Yeah, they're well qualified. To
Nobody from
discuss it.
Hanks Realty or Metrolina can participate in that particular episode. Too much might come out.
That'd be a fun one.
Well, thanks for coming back, Matthew. Guys, I hope you have a great week, and we will check you then.